The conference room screen was still warming up when my email disappeared. 1 second, I was looking at a spreadsheet labeled Harbor and Pine Launch Budget. The next, the page went white and a message appeared saying my session had expired. Then Slack vanished. Then the project dashboard. Then the calendar on my phone refreshed and erased every internal meeting I had scheduled for the rest of the week. Across the table, my boss, Derek Hall, folded his hands as if he had been waiting for the technology to finish the unpleasant part for him. Harbor and Pine canceled the account because of your handling of the proposal, he said. Given the size of the loss, we're ending your employment effective immediately. Dana from Human Resources sat beside him with a folder she had not opened. Our Chief Operating Officer, Miriam Cole, was on the video screen from another office. No one asked me what had happened. No one showed me the cancellation email. Derek had already removed my access before I could pull up the messages that proved I had warned him. By the time security walked me to the elevator, the company had accepted his version as fact. Then, while I was sitting in my car with my cardboard box on the passenger seat, my personal phone lit up with a message from Priya Shah, the client's vice president of marketing. Why were you removed from the account? Before I could answer, another message appeared. I just forwarded Miriam the original emails. She needs to see who changed the proposal. That was the moment I realized Derek had not simply blamed me for losing a client. He had assumed he could erase the record before anyone thought to compare his story with the truth. Welcome to Drama Z Reddit. 6 months earlier, I would have described Derek as difficult but effective. That was the phrase people used when a man interrupted meetings, changed decisions without warning, and treated preparation like a personality flaw. Difficult but effective. It sounded much better than reckless with other people's work. I had been a senior account manager at Northline Creative for 7 years. We were a mid-sized marketing agency in Minneapolis, large enough to have departments and quarterly targets, but small enough that one lost client could rearrange the mood of the entire building. I was 34, unmarried, and very good at the kind of work nobody noticed when it went well. I remembered approval dates. I knew which client hated phone calls and which one wanted every decision summarized in writing. I could look at a campaign timeline and tell which department would miss a deadline 3 weeks before they admitted it. My job was not glamorous. Most days involved spreadsheets, conference calls, and gently reminding adults that the word final had already been used 4 versions ago. Harbor and Pine was my largest account. They were a regional home furnishings company with stores across the Midwest. Their business was steady, practical, and built on repeat customers. They wanted us to develop a loyalty program called Home Circle, along with an email campaign and a customer portal. The project was worth nearly $800,000 a year to Northline. Priya Shah had been my main contact for almost 3 years. She was direct, organized, and allergic to sales language that meant nothing. When she said phased launch, she meant phased launch. When she said the budget ceiling was $240,000, she did not mean $240,000 plus an exciting opportunity. The original plan was simple. Harbor and Pine would keep its existing customer database. We would build the loyalty portal around it, test the program in 12 stores, and expand only after the first stage proved stable. Priya had written the conditions in an email after our kickoff meeting. No forced migration to a new customer platform. No launch before security testing was complete. No additional software fees without written approval. I saved that email in the project folder and copied the conditions into my yellow meeting notebook. I had carried some version of that notebook for years. It was where I wrote promises people made when they were still calm enough to deny them later. Derek became Director of Client Services halfway through the project. Before his promotion, he had managed business development. He was charming with new clients and impatient with existing ones. He loved large presentations, dramatic forecasts, and words like transformation. What he did not love was being told that a client had already made a decision. During his first review of the Home Circle project, He clicked through my plan for less than 5 minutes before leaning back in his chair. "We're leaving money on the table," he said. The client set a budget cap. They set a cap based on the options they understood. They rejected the platform migration twice. Derek smiled. "That means we haven't explained the value properly." His proposal was to move Harbor and Pine onto Northline's new customer data platform. It would nearly double the project cost and delay the launch by at least 3 months. The platform had not been tested at the scale Harbor and Pine required. Our technical lead, Noah Bennett, had said so during an internal meeting. Derek called that caution. I called it a fairly important detail when asking a client to move information belonging to several 100,000 customers. I reminded him of Priya's written requirements. He tapped the table with one finger. "Lena, clients don't hire us to take orders. They hire us to lead." It was the kind of sentence that sounded impressive until you remembered the client was paying us to do the thing they had actually requested. Still, I did what I had always done. I stayed calm. I explained the risk. I offered a compromise in which we could introduce the new platform after the pilot stage. Derek agreed in the meeting. The next morning, he changed the internal revenue projection to include the platform fees. That was the first sign. The second came when he asked me to add him as an administrator to the proposal folder. Directors usually had access, so I did not object. I told myself it was normal oversight. I told myself that resisting would make me look territorial. That was one of my weaknesses. I could identify a bad idea quickly, but I needed an unreasonable amount of evidence before I allowed myself to identify bad faith. For the next month, Derek kept inserting the platform into client presentations. Priya kept removing it. After the third meeting, she called me directly. "Is there some internal requirement that you sell this to us?" she asked. I looked through the glass wall of the conference room. Derek was standing outside, pretending not to watch me. "There's interest in making sure you understand every option," I said carefully. "We understand it. We don't want it. I'll document that." "I thought you already had." There was no anger in her voice, which somehow made the question worse. I sent Derek a summary before the call had even ended. "Priya has again declined the platform migration. She considers the issue closed. Continuing to include it may damage trust and put the broader account at risk." He replied 12 minutes later. "Noted. We still need to challenge limited client thinking." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I added it to the Home Circle folder. At our next leadership meeting, Derek announced that the account had significant expansion potential. He did not mention that the client had rejected the expansion. When I corrected the forecast, he laughed lightly. "Lena is our resident pessimist," he told the room. "She keeps us honest." Everyone smiled. It sounded like a compliment. That was what made it useful. Afterward, Miriam stopped me near the coffee machine. "Derek says you're having trouble adjusting to the new growth strategy." "I'm not against growth," I said. "I'm against putting rejected services into a client forecast." She gave me the patient expression senior leaders use when they believe they are witnessing a personality conflict instead of a factual disagreement. "You've owned this account for a long time. Try to leave room for new ideas." I should have escalated then. Instead, I went back to my desk and rewrote the project timeline so the team could still meet the client's requested date. I thought results would protect me. That was my second weakness. I believed being useful was the same as being safe. Derek began holding short meetings about Harbor and Pine without inviting me. He called them leadership check-ins. Decisions from those meetings would reach me through junior employees who assumed I already knew. The platform team started building migration estimates. Finance added projected licensing revenue. A designer created slides showing a completely new customer journey. Every time I objected, Derek told me nothing had been finalized. Then he told other people I was resisting collaboration. My friend Tessa worked in media planning on another floor. We had lunch together most Thursdays. Usually at a small Thai restaurant where the tables were too close together and the service was fast enough to discourage emotional conversations. I told her what was happening anyway. "You need to put this in writing to someone above him," she said. "It is in writing. To him. And in the project records. That's not the same as making leadership confront it." I picked at the label on my water bottle. "If I go over his head, I'll look impossible to manage." Tessa looked at me for a few seconds. "You're worried they'll think you're difficult." "Yes. He's already telling them that." I hated how quickly she said it. A week later, Priya approved the final project scope. The approved version kept Harbor and Pine's existing database, limited the pilot to 12 stores, and stayed under the budget cap. She signed off by email at 4:17 on a Tuesday afternoon. I printed the approval and placed it in my yellow notebook. The next morning, Derek asked me to join him in a small meeting room. He had the approved proposal open on his laptop. "We need one final revision," he said. "The client approved it." "I know." "Then it's final." He rotated the laptop toward me. The revised version included the platform migration, a 3-year software commitment, and a new launch date. The total cost was $418,000. I felt heat rise along the back of my neck. She rejected all of this. She rejected it before we bundled the value. We are not authorized to replace the approved scope. I'm the director of client services. And she is the client. His jaw tightened. This is exactly the rigidity I've been talking about. I closed the laptop. I won't send this under my name. For the first time since his promotion, Derek stopped smiling. "No one asked you to be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear." He stood and opened the door. "We'll revisit this when you're able to separate your emotions from the work." By lunchtime, I had been removed as the owner of the proposal document. Derek said it was temporary. That afternoon, my account coordinator, Molly Kim, appeared beside my desk. She was 26, bright and chronically afraid of disappointing anyone with a title. "Derek wants the shared mailbox signature updated," she said. "For what?" "He said leadership will send the final proposal." "The client already approved the final proposal." Molly lowered her voice. "I know. Did he ask you to send something?" "He told me to make sure the account signature still shows your name because you're the relationship lead." My stomach tightened. "Do not send any revised scope with my signature." She glanced toward Derek's office. "He said the changes are already approved." "They aren't." I sent her my copy of Priya's approval email and told her to keep it. Then I wrote to Derek, Dana from Human Resources, and Miriam. "For clarity, I have not approved the revised Harbor and Pine proposal that includes the platform migration. The client approved version 7 yesterday. Any later version materially changes price, timing, and technical scope. Please do not represent those changes as approved by me or by the client." Dana replied first. "Thank you for documenting your concern. Please continue working through your manager." Miriam did not reply. Derek called me into his office. "You embarrassed me." I clarified the record. "You copied the chief operating officer on an internal disagreement. It stopped being a disagreement when my name was attached to a proposal I refused to send." He leaned back in his chair. "You need to decide whether you want to be part of leadership or whether you want to behave like an auditor. I want the client to receive what they approved. Your job is broader than that." "No. My job is not broader than consent." His expression changed. It was small, but I saw it. Until then, he had assumed I could be pressured into cooperation. That sentence told him I might become a problem. The following Monday, Dana scheduled what she called a role alignment meeting. Derek arrived with a printed document titled, Performance Expectations. It said I had demonstrated resistance to strategic direction, created confusion among junior staff, and damaged internal trust by escalating routine decisions. There was no mention of the unauthorized proposal. Dana slid the paper toward me. "This is not disciplinary action," she said. It looked remarkably like disciplinary action wearing office casual clothing. I read every line. One section required me to support all approved leadership decisions in client communications. Another said I must avoid language that could cause team members to question management authority. "Who determines whether a decision is approved?" I asked. "Leadership," Derek said. "Even when the client has rejected it?" Dana exhaled. "This meeting is about communication style." That answer is important to my communication style. Derek pushed a pen toward me. "Sign that you received it." I signed only after writing. "Receipt does not indicate agreement." Derek watched me add the sentence. "You always need the last word, don't you?" "No," I said, "just an accurate one." That afternoon, he took me off the weekly executive call with Harbor and Pine. He told Priya I was focused on implementation. He told me Priya wanted more senior involvement. Neither statement was completely false. That was one of his strengths. He built lies out of pieces that were technically real. For 2 weeks, I received filtered summaries instead of direct information. The development team asked why the project requirements kept changing. Finance asked which budget was valid. Molly stopped making eye contact with me. Noah, our technical lead, sent me a private message. "Are we migrating them now?" I replied that the client had not approved it. He called me immediately. "Derek says they did. Ask him for the approval." There was a pause. "He said you had it." "I don't." "That's a problem." "Yes." "Do you want me to escalate the technical risk?" I almost said yes. Then I imagined Derek describing me as recruiting staff against him. "Document the risk in the project system," I said. "Stick to the technical facts." Noah did. His note said the revised scope could not meet the proposed launch date and required security work not included in the schedule. 2 hours later, the note disappeared from the main dashboard. Noah called me again. Derek marked it resolved. Was it resolved? No. That was the third sign. The first was the revenue forecast. The second was my name being left on the shared mailbox. The third was technical risk being closed without a solution. At the time, I understood each problem separately. I had not yet accepted that they were parts of the same plan. At 11:47 on Thursday night, the revised proposal was sent to Priya. I did not know until 8 the next morning. The email came from the shared Harbor and Pine account. The signature at the bottom showed my name and title. The attached file was labeled Home Circle Final Proposal. It was Derek's $418,000 version. Priya's reply had arrived 6 minutes later. "Lena, this is not the scope we approved, please explain." Derek answered before I could. "Priya, apologies for the confusion. Lena will clarify this morning. We remain confident this expanded approach is the right strategic direction." I read the exchange twice. Then I walked into Derek's office without knocking. "You sent it under my name." He barely looked up. "It came from the account mailbox. With my signature. You are the account lead. You removed me from the document and sent a proposal I rejected. You're focusing on process because you're uncomfortable with the strategy. I am focusing on the fact that you made it look like I changed the agreement." He closed his laptop. "Call Priya and calm her down." "No." His eyebrows lifted. "I will call her and state exactly what happened. You will not create internal drama for a client. You already sent the drama as an attachment." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, very quietly, "Be careful." It was not dramatic. He did not threaten my career or slam his hand on the desk. He just said it like a person reminding me which one of us controlled the doors. I returned to my desk and called Priya. Derek joined the call without asking. Priya did not bother with greetings. Why was the approved scope replaced? Derek answered. We identified additional capabilities that we believe are necessary for long-term success. That is not what I asked. I understand the surprise. It isn't surprise. It is rejection. I opened my mouth, but Derek kept talking. He said the team had reviewed the business needs. He said the expanded platform would reduce long-term cost. He said I had been involved throughout the process. That was the moment I made my first serious mistake. I tried to protect the company while correcting Derek. There were internal discussions, I said. But the version you approved did not include the migration. Derek jumped in. Lena, we all reviewed the revised recommendation. We reviewed it internally. Priya did not approve it. Priya went silent. Derek said, perhaps this is not the right setting for internal distinctions. Priya's voice became colder. It became the right setting when your company sent me a contract for nearly twice the amount we approved. The call ended with Harbor and Pine pausing all work. Derek closed the meeting window and looked at me. You just undermined us in front of the client. I answered her question. You made leadership appear divided. Leadership was divided. He stood. Go home for the rest of the day. At 4:30, Dana emailed me a written warning for insubordination. That was Derek's first real victory. He had sent the unauthorized proposal. He had used my signature. He had misrepresented the approval. And I was the one with a warning in my personnel file. For the next week, Harbor and Pine refused meetings. Northline's finance team froze new work on the account. My quarterly bonus was placed on hold because the revenue was at risk. Derek began telling people the client relationship had deteriorated because I had failed to manage expectations. I heard it from Noah, then from Tessa, then from a junior designer who apologized immediately after repeating it. I asked Dana for a formal review. She scheduled a 30-minute meeting and spent 20 of those minutes explaining that management decisions sometimes involved information employees did not have. What information would make it appropriate to send an unapproved proposal under my name? That is not the framing Derek has provided. Then what framing did he provide? She glanced at her notes. He said you had agreed to position the expanded scope as a final recommendation. I did not. He said there were verbal discussions. There were discussions. I objected in every one. Do you have documentation? I nearly laughed. I had emails. Project notes. The client's approval. Noah's technical warning. My formal message to leadership. But Derek controlled the systems containing most of it. I documented the issue before the proposal was sent. Dana nodded without looking convinced. We'll review what's available. The next morning, my access to the Harbor and Pine project folder was changed to read-only. By afternoon, I could no longer see previous versions of the proposal. When I asked technology support why, they said Derek had requested a permissions cleanup. That was when I stopped trying to persuade him. I started protecting myself. I did not download confidential client files or send company documents to my personal email. I knew better than to create a new problem while defending myself from the existing one. Instead, I made a dated record of everything I personally witnessed. I listed meeting times, attendees, and decisions. I wrote down the exact wording of my warnings while I still remembered it. I saved copies of my own human resources communications through the approved employee portal. I asked Dana in writing to preserve the proposal version history, shared mailbox logs, and access change records because they were relevant to my complaint. She replied that Northline retained records according to company policy. It was not a promise, but it was now part of the record. I also asked Derek to confirm the basis for holding my bonus. He responded that my failure to retain the client had materially affected company revenue. That sentence was useful. It showed he had already decided the outcome before Harbor and Pine had formally canceled anything. 2 days later, Priya sent a cancellation notice. The letter said Northline had repeatedly disregarded written requirements, introduced unapproved costs, and misrepresented the status of client approval. It did not name me. I know that because Priya later showed it to me. At the time, I only saw Derek's summary. He called an emergency leadership meeting at 8:30 the next morning. I was not invited. At 10:15, Dana asked me to bring my laptop to conference room 4. That was the room where my email disappeared. Derek said Harbor and Pine had canceled because I had mishandled the final proposal and damaged trust during the client call. I asked to see the cancellation letter. He said it was confidential. I asked whether my written objections had been reviewed. Dana said the decision was final. Miriam appeared on the screen and told me the loss had created consequences across the company. I understand that, I said. But I did not authorize or send the proposal that caused the loss. Derek shook his head. You were the account lead. You cannot claim ownership when things go well and deny responsibility when they don't. I'm not denying responsibility, I'm denying your version of events. Dana opened the folder. Lena, this meeting is not an investigation. That sentence told me everything. They were not there to determine what happened. They were there to complete what Derek had already arranged. I was fired for cause. No severance. No quarterly bonus. My health insurance would end at the end of the month. I had 11 minutes to gather 7 years of my life into a cardboard box. Molly stood when she saw security beside me. Her face went pale. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wanted to ask her what she had done. I wanted to ask whether she had sent the email. Whether Derek had ordered her to keep my signature. Whether she had seen him edit the proposal. Instead, I said, keep your own records. She nodded once. Derek watched from the glass wall of his office. He did not come out. In the parking garage, I put my box on the passenger seat. My yellow notebook was lying on top, bent at one corner where it had caught against the desk drawer. I sat behind the wheel and stared at it. For years, I had treated documentation like protection. I thought that if I wrote things down clearly enough, reasonable people would eventually choose the truth. But records do not protect you if the people with power refuse to look at them. My phone buzzed. It was Priya. Why were you removed from the account? I considered ignoring the message. I had just been fired, and anything I said could be twisted into proof that I had violated confidentiality. I typed carefully. Northline ended my employment this morning. I cannot discuss internal matters, but I wanted to thank you for the years we worked together. Her reply came immediately. They fired you over our cancellation? I wrote that I had been told the account loss was the reason. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Our cancellation letter did not blame you. I closed my eyes. A few seconds later, she sent another message. Derek told us you approved the expanded proposal. Is that what they told leadership? I did not answer the question directly. I wrote. I objected to the revised scope before it was sent. Priya called me. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. What exactly happened? She asked. I need to be careful about what I say. Understood, then I'll tell you what I have. She explained that after the proposal arrived, she had searched her email for every message related to the scope. She found her original requirements, her approval of version 7, and my repeated summaries confirming that the migration had been rejected. She also found an email Derek had accidentally copied her on 3 weeks earlier. I had never seen it. It was a response to our finance director asking why platform revenue had been added before client approval. Derek had written, "Lena is too cautious to position the full package. I'll take control of the final recommendation. Once the expanded scope is in front of the client, they will negotiate, rather than walk away." Priya read the sentence aloud. I gripped the steering wheel. That was the twist I had been too close to see. Derek had not believed the client would approve the proposal. He had expected them to object. He planned to use the unauthorized scope as a negotiating tactic, then claim credit for whatever additional revenue survived. My objections were not an obstacle he had failed to understand. They were the reason he needed my name on the email. If the gamble worked, he would be the director who expanded the account. If it failed, I would be the account manager who lost it. "Did you send that email to Northline?" I asked. "Not yet." I looked at the concrete wall in front of my car. Part of me wanted to tell her to send everything. I wanted Derek's career to disappear as quickly as my inbox had. But I also knew I could not turn a client into a weapon for personal revenge. "You should do whatever you believe is accurate for your business relationship," I said. "I can't ask you to intervene in an employment decision." "I'm not intervening for you," Priya said. "I'm correcting a false account of why we canceled." That distinction mattered. She asked for Miriam's direct email address. I told her it was listed on Northline's website. Before we ended the call, she said, "For what it's worth, I should have questioned the email signature sooner. You had no reason to assume a company director was using it against his own employee. Neither did you." I looked at the yellow notebook beside me. I had more reasons than I admitted. 20 minutes later, Priya texted me. Sent. The subject line was Original Home Circle Approval and Proposal History. She forwarded the full email chain to Miriam, Dana, Northline's chief executive and the finance director. She attached the approved version of the proposal, the unauthorized replacement, and her cancellation letter. She also included Derek's email about taking control of the recommendation. But the most damaging part was not the email in which he described his plan. It was his response after the cancellation. Priya had asked him why the expanded proposal had been sent after multiple written rejections. Derek replied that I had insisted the client would accept the new scope and had personally approved sending it through the shared mailbox. He had not merely allowed people to assume I was responsible. He had put the lie in writing. My phone rang at 6:12 that evening. It was Dana. "We received information from Harbor and Pine that raises questions about the process," she said. "The process of my termination or the process of sending the proposal?" There was a pause. "Both." She asked whether I could attend a meeting the next morning. I said I would attend remotely. She said they preferred in person. For 7 years, I had entered that building whenever Northline asked. I had answered client calls during vacations, fixed presentations at midnight, and apologized for decisions I had not made. This time, I said, "Remote is the condition under which I'm available." Dana agreed. After the call, I sat on my kitchen floor and cried for the first time. Not because I wanted the job back. Because the truth had finally reached the room after I had been removed from it. Tessa came over with takeout and found me surrounded by unopened mail. "They called you back?" she asked. "For a review?" "Good." "It doesn't feel good." "No," she said, sitting beside me. "It feels late." That night, I barely slept. I drafted long speeches in my head. I imagined exposing every smug comment Derek had made. I imagined Miriam apologizing. I imagined Dana admitting she had ignored my complaint. Then I deleted the notes. I did not need to win an argument. I needed 4 things. My termination for cause removed from my record. My earned bonus paid. A written employment reference reflecting my actual performance. And a separation agreement that did not require me to accept blame for the client loss. At 9 the next morning, I joined the video call. Conference room 4 appeared on my screen. Derek sat on one side of the table. Dana sat beside him. Miriam was at the head, with our finance director, Colin, near the wall. Molly was also there. I had not expected that. She looked as if she had not slept. Miriam began. We are reviewing inconsistencies between the information provided during your termination and records supplied by Harbor and Pine. Derek leaned forward. I think it's important that we not let a frustrated client rewrite internal events. Miriam looked at him. You'll have an opportunity to respond. His mouth tightened. Dana asked me to explain my involvement in the final proposal. I kept my answer simple. Priya approved version 7. Derek later created a version that added the platform migration and increased the price. I objected verbally and in writing. I was removed from the document. The revised proposal was then sent from the shared mailbox using my signature. Derek interrupted. You participated in strategy discussions. I did. So it is misleading to say you had no involvement. I was involved in opposing it. He looked toward Miriam. This is what I dealt with for months. She reframes collaboration as victimhood. A few weeks earlier, that sentence might have made me defend my personality. This time, I stayed quiet. Miriam opened the first attachment from Priya. It was the original requirements email. She read the sections banning platform migration and unapproved fees. Then she opened Priya's approval of version 7. Derek, did Harbor and Pine approve any later version? They approved the strategic direction in conversation. Priya's forwarded email included a line beneath that claim. For avoidance of doubt, no one at Harbor and Pine verbally approved the migration, expanded price or revised launch date. Colin shifted in his chair. Derek said, clients often become more rigid after a relationship deteriorates. Miriam opened the next email. It was my warning to Derek, Dana, and Miriam. I have not approved the revised Harbor and Pine proposal. Miriam read it twice. Dana looked down at the table. Derek said, that message came after extensive internal review. It came before the proposal was sent, I said. He turned toward the screen. You were the account lead. If you believed the proposal was improper, you had a responsibility to stop it. You removed my editing access. That did not prevent you from communicating. I communicated in writing to you, Human Resources, and the Chief Operating Officer. No one spoke. Then I said the sentence I had needed to understand months earlier. Responsibility without authority is just a convenient place to store blame. Molly looked up. Derek's face reddened. He pointed toward her. Molly can confirm that Lena knew the proposal was going out. Molly froze. Miriam turned to her. You're not required to agree with anyone in this room. Tell us what happened. Molly swallowed. Derek asked me to update the shared mailbox signature. Why? He said the proposal needed to look like it came from the account lead. Derek shook his head. That is not what I said. Molly's voice became quieter. You said Priya trusted Lena more than leadership. The room went still. Derek leaned back. Molly is a junior employee. She may have misunderstood context. Molly's hands were clasped tightly on the table. I asked whether Lena had approved the proposal. You told me approval was a management decision. Dana finally looked at Derek. Did you instruct Molly to send it? No, I sent it. That was his mistake. Until then. The shared mailbox left room for ambiguity. With that sentence, he claimed the action himself. Colin opened his laptop. What time did you send it? I don't remember. The mailbox log says 11:47. Derek looked at him sharply. Colin continued. The proposal history shows your account replaced version 7 at 11:32. Lena's access was changed to read-only at 5:14 that afternoon. Derek rubbed his forehead. We were moving quickly to protect the account. You changed the approved scope, removed the account lead's access, and sent the new version using her signature, Miriam said. I made a judgment call. Then why did you tell the client Lena approved it? His eyes moved around the table. No one helped him. He tried a different argument. Because she was responsible for the relationship. I was trying to preserve confidence in the team. I almost admired the flexibility of the explanation. Every version made him the person protecting the company from the consequences of his own decisions. Miriam opened the email Derek had accidentally copied to Priya. I'll take control of the final recommendation. Once the expanded scope is in front of the client, they will negotiate rather than walk away. Colin sat back. The platform expansion would have counted toward your quarterly growth target, he said. Derek's expression hardened. All directors have targets. What was your bonus impact if Harbor and Pine accepted the migration? That is irrelevant. It is not irrelevant, Colin said. Derek looked toward Dana. This has turned into an ambush. Dana's face had gone pale. No, she said. This is a review of records we should have reviewed before taking action. It was the first time anyone from Northline had said that aloud. Derek stood. I'm not participating in a meeting where a terminated employee and a hostile client are allowed to dictate leadership decisions. Miriam did not raise her voice. Sit down. He remained standing. She continued. Your system access has been suspended pending a formal investigation. Colin will collect your laptop. The reversal was almost identical to what had happened to me. A device, a locked account, a room full of people refusing to explain the future. But it did not feel satisfying. It felt heavy. Derek looked at me through the screen. You did this. No, I said. You did it. I just stopped carrying it for you. He laughed once, without humor. You think they're going to trust you after this? I'm not asking them to. That was the moment the power changed. Not when his access was suspended. Not when the emails were opened. It changed when I realized I no longer needed Northline to choose me. Colin left the room with Derek. Molly began crying silently. Dana handed her a tissue, then turned toward me. Lena, we would like to discuss correcting your termination record. I have 4 conditions. Miriam nodded. I listed them. The termination for cause had to be rescinded. My earned bonus had to be paid. Northline had to provide a written reference based on my 7 years of performance. And any separation agreement had to state that I was not responsible for the unauthorized proposal or the loss of Harbor and Pine. Dana asked whether I would consider reinstatement. For a few seconds, I pictured my old desk. I pictured my team, my routines, and the comfort of knowing exactly where everything was. I pictured walking back into the office and watching people pretend they had never believed Derek. Then I pictured conference room 4. No, I said. Miriam looked surprised. We can discuss a reporting structure that would protect you from retaliation. You already had structures that were supposed to protect me. The problem was that no one used them until the client made the truth expensive. Dana flinched. I did not say it to hurt her. That was simply what had happened. Miriam asked what I wanted instead of reinstatement. A fair exit. Northline agreed to review the terms that day. I ended the call before anyone could turn the moment into a speech about moving forward together. 3 days later, I received a separation agreement. It included severance, my full quarterly bonus, 6 months of health coverage, and a reference letter signed by Miriam. The termination was changed to a mutual separation following an internal process failure. I asked them to remove the word mutual. There had been nothing mutual about being locked out of my email. They changed it to separation following an internal management failure. That was accurate enough. Molly called me after work. I should have told them sooner, she said. Yes. She went quiet. I could have softened it. The old version of me would have rushed to reassure her that she was young, afraid, and under pressure. All of those things were true. They also did not erase her choice. I was scared he would fire me. She said. I know. Are you angry? Yes. She started crying again. I waited. Then I said, being scared explains why you stayed quiet. It doesn't make the silence harmless. She told me she had submitted a written statement and requested a transfer to another department. I wished her well, but I did not tell her everything was fine. It was not. Noah apologized too. He had documented the technical risk, but when Derek marked it resolved, he had not pushed further. I thought you had it handled, he said. That was the problem, I told him. Everyone thought I could handle being left alone. A month later, Northline informed me that Derek no longer worked there. They did not give details, and I did not ask. Harbor and Pine did not return to Northline. Priya said the company had lost confidence in the approval process. Not just in one director. That consequence belonged to Northline. For years, they had rewarded Derek's certainty and treated my caution as resistance. They did not get to describe the outcome as one bad employee surprising everyone. Priya later asked whether I wanted to apply for an open position at Harbor and Pine. I thanked her and declined. The offer was kind, but I did not want my next chapter to exist, because the client rescued me from the company that failed me. I spent 2 months unemployed. There was nothing glamorous about it. I reduced expenses. I postponed a trip. I woke up at 6 each morning with nowhere to be, and still felt guilty for not checking email. Some days, I questioned whether refusing reinstatement had been foolish. Then I remembered how quickly my access had disappeared, and how many people had watched it happen. Eventually, I accepted a position at a smaller agency, where account managers and directors had separate approval permissions. It was not a perfect workplace. People still made mistakes. Meetings still ran too long. The difference was that disagreements had a process. On my first major proposal, my new manager asked me to document the client's approval before the file moved to finance. I almost laughed. Instead, I opened a fresh notebook. It was blue, not yellow. I wrote the date, the approved amount, and the names of everyone responsible for the decision. Then I stopped. For years, I had used my notes as a private shield. I wrote everything down and hoped I would never need to make anyone else uncomfortable with it. This time, I uploaded the summary to the shared project folder and asked each decision maker to confirm it. No one called me difficult. No one accused me of lacking trust. They simply replied, approved. I still have the old yellow notebook. It sits in the bottom drawer of my desk, bent at one corner. Inside it are Priya's original requirements, my warnings, and the dates I once believed would protect me automatically. Sometimes I open it. Not to relive the firing. To remember the part I played before it happened. I stayed quiet too long, because I wanted to be seen as reasonable. I kept fixing problems privately because being needed felt safer than being heard. I believed the truth would defend itself as long as I had written it somewhere. Now I know better. The truth needs a record. But sometimes it also needs a person willing to place that record in the middle of the table and let everyone become uncomfortable. At the end of each day, I close my laptop and place the blue notebook on top of it. I no longer carry it home. The work stays at work. And my name stays attached only to decisions I actually made. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow Drama Z Reddit for more new stories.